Hi, guess what? It is 2023, and I am going to tell you exactly how you can start your flight attendant career this year. I'm going to go over what it takes. I'm going to tell you who's hiring, what you need to get hired, and how you're going to land that dream job. So we're going to go through it all right here in this video. So if you don't know me, I'm Abby Unger. I'm the owner of Flight Attendant Career Connection, and for 10 years, I've been helping aspiring flight attendants land their dream job faster and with less frustration. And before that, I was a flight attendant myself. I have background as a commercial flight attendant working for a mainline legacy carrier, as well as working for a regional carrier as a flight attendant, a check flight attendant, and an in-flight instructor. And I am passionate about helping people discover and enjoy the lifestyle that meant so much to me when I joined in 2006. Since then, I've taken some time off to raise my family and also to pursue this passion project, helping other people learn how to become flight attendants and to go through the process without as much heartbreak and disappointment as they would have had if they didn't first do a little bit of preparation. So if you're not yet a member of the Facebook group, Flight Attendant Career Connection, I'm going to put the link down below. I'd love to have you join over there. There's over 100,000 members in that group, in my group, and it is full of current, former, and aspiring flight attendants. So any question you have, you can get that answered, or actually it's probably already been asked before. So if you use that search bar, you can find your answer almost instantly. But let's dive into what we need to know for 2023. So first of all, this year is going to be a banner year for flight attendant hiring. We've seen Delta Airlines announce that they are hiring between 4,000 and 6,000 flight attendants this year. United is hiring thousands, American is hiring thousands, and those are the mainline legacy carriers that we've all heard of. That's not to mention all the charter airlines, Omni, FSI, that are hiring flight attendants, as well as the regionals, PSA, Piedmont, Envoy, Republic, Mesa, Commute Air. All these regional airlines are hiring hundreds and hundreds of flight attendants as well. And a lot of those companies just got huge pay raises last year too. So their starting pay at the smaller regional carriers is actually really close to mainline pay now, which is such a barrier removed. I'm so happy they did that. And then we're also seeing low cost and ultra low cost carriers continue to grow. I don't know. I think Spirit stopped hiring just for like a couple months in 2020, but they have been growing and chasing their own dreams for years now, and they're continuing to grow, continuing to add aircraft. Southwest has accepted applications more often than ever. It used to be every 18 to 24 months they would accept applications, and now we've seen them accept applications 3 times in the last 18 months, external and twice internally. I think one was just for a California position, but twice for internal candidates. So people who already work for their airline. But that is just unheard of in the last 10 years, how many years? The 8 years previous to when we've seen this change in the industry. So there's so much opportunity right now. If you're thinking about becoming a flight attendant, if you've been pursuing this for a little while, if you've been dabbling, if you've been waiting for the right time, I'm so excited if 2023 is your year, is your right time, because there is so much opportunity. So let's talk about how to become a flight attendant. I'm going to walk through all the steps. First of all, to become a commercial flight attendant in the United States, you do not need any special schooling or training or degrees, okay? Let me say it again. To become a flight attendant, you do not need any special training or not skills. You need skills, training or certifications or schooling or degrees to become a flight attendant in the US. Your airline will teach you everything you need to know. And even if you go to a school like a flight attendant school, you'll still have to go through training, the same training with your airline. So don't put any focus on that. Put your focus on preparing for the interview, getting your resume right, getting the things that you need, getting your ducks in a row so that you can really shine in your interview and receive that invitation to training and let them train you to be the flight attendant that they want you to be, to turn you into a flight attendant. Airlines hire for personality and they train for skill. They hire for attitude and they train for skill. They don't hire flight attendants. They hire people they think will make excellent flight attendants, and then they turn you into a flight attendant. They teach you how to be a flight attendant, which is kind of cool. So don't worry about any kind of schools. What do you need? You need a resume. right? We need a resume. So resumes, pretty much all of them are going to be digital. There may be some cases at a face-to-face, they're asking you to be your resume, bring your resume on a piece of paper. But now post COVID, we're seeing a lot less like passing stuff back and forth. So you'll need a digital copy of your resume for sure. It does not have to only be one page. It can be up to 2 pages long, and you want to have about the last 10 years of experience on there. COVID changed all the different nuances with the way that work went and jobs went in 2020. It's not unusual to have a little bit of maybe a gap or a change in career or a change in company or a furlough or a layoff or something like that in the last 3 years. It's really, really not unusual. It is so common for you to have some sort of like, it feels like it's not super slick or not super clean, but that is okay. That is okay. You don't have to have a super straightforward 10 years of consistent no gap background or employment history to become a flight attendant. Now, they are going to ask for the last 10 years of your employment or your last 10 years of your history without gaps. And the reason they're requesting it without gaps is because they need to run a background check on you. So they need to run that FBI background check on you, make sure that you're a safe person to become a flight attendant. So when they request no gaps, it doesn't mean if you have a gap, you're disqualified. They just want you to account for where you were. Were you a stay-at-home mom? Were you furloughed? Were you a military spouse? And so you were traveling, you were taking care of the house, or you were moving too much? Were you immigrating to the US and you're waiting for your work visa? Whatever was going on, totally fine. Whatever was going on is so fine. It's just they need to know what it is. So don't let that make you feel bad if they're requesting 10 years of work history and yours is only like 7 3/4 because you had like a weirdness. Pretty much everyone had a weirdness. I've seen a lot of resumes. So don't worry about that. But you do need a resume. Do not put periods at the end of your bullet points. Do not put your references on your resume. And make sure that every single job that you have on there has a bullet point of at least one about safety, at least one about customer service, and at least one about teamwork. Okay, so really challenge yourself to pull all of those 3 pillars of the flight attendant career out and highlight them in your resume. Okay, so that's step 1 is resume. Once you get that set, and I do have some resources for you if you look below. There's some resources, classes, blog posts, things like that to help you with your resume. So check out below if you would like some support. But after that's done, next step is to apply. There's a link. There's another link below. I've been doing this for 10 years, so I probably have a link for all of these, but there's a link to a page totally free that we update most days about who is hiring. So this is a list of who's accepting applications in the US. It's not necessarily hiring because that's a little bit different than accepting applications, but these are the companies that you can fill out your application. The only place you will be applying for a flight attendant job is on an airline's website, not a LinkedIn recruiter, not on Facebook, not on Instagram, not on TikTok, WhatsApp, Snap or Chat, whatever. None of those. Those are primarily scammers, not on Indeed. The Indeed and LinkedIn can send you to an airline's website, same as my page. My page will send you to an airline's website, but I'm not collecting applications. I'm not collecting sensitive information and then distributing it to airlines. There are so many scams. It is free. It is always free to apply to be a flight attendant. And they will not ask you to hold your passport next to your face and take a photo and send it to them. Okay, that's a scam for unemployment. That's an unemployment scam. So please only apply through the airline's website. There's a lot of airlines. So any of the airlines' websites, you can use my page for reference. That's a safe place to start. Do not give out sensitive information over LinkedIn. Do not give out sensitive information over Facebook. Even if you are giving out some information, or maybe you connect with someone who's a recruiter, you will eventually at some point sooner than later fill out an application on the airline's website. Okay, really important to keep you and your personal information safe. So once you fill out your application, next step is your interview process. Okay, so there are lots of different steps in an interview process to become a flight attendant, and not all the airlines use them, but some airlines use them all, and some airlines use parts and pieces of them. So let's talk about the first part, the assessment. sometimes called like a talent card or a talent assessment. This is basically a personality assessment to see if you have the kind of personality that their airline is looking for. Things to keep in mind is you want to be all in or all out. So strongly agree, strongly disagree more than you want to be straight down the middle. Number two, you want to trust your gut and go with your instincts. Don't try to figure out what they want. Do you have the personality to be a great flight attendant? Yes, ma'am, you do. So you don't have to try to trick them into thinking you have the right personality. You already got the right personality. Getting so excited. So also before you go to do your assessment, make sure you're feeling good about yourself, that you're in your best personality, in your best state of mind. And you do that by halting, making sure you're not hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And that will help you be the most authentic you when you take your assessment. Don't worry about trying to take it super fast. Of course, the sooner you get it done, great, the better. It's on its way and you're in the running. But if you're tired or you're not feeling great, don't do it just to get it done. We want it done right, not fast. And that's going to be a theme throughout the interview process. I can tell you that. That's a little tip right there, too. Once the assessment is done, the other steps are different types of interviews. We've got a virtual interview, which would be like a face-to-face with another person on a Zoom type platform. We've got a pre-recorded on-demand video interview. And that's the kind of interview where you get a link and a question will pop up on the screen. You'll record yourself answering it. And there's usually 3 to 5 questions, and then you'll send that off to be reviewed. Another type of interview is a virtual group interview. American does this, where there's about 20 candidates. You get on Zoom together, and there's a couple recruiters on there, and everyone gets a chance to answer a question, and everyone gets a chance to kind of interact with each other. And well, not really with each other. Everyone gets a chance to answer a question. There's not a whole lot of interaction, but that's the virtual group interview. And then there's also a face-to-face interview. So this is when you go and you meet with someone face-to-face. Usually there's other candidates there. Usually there is a time to mix and mingle. That's a Delta thing. They call it the mix and mingle. Basically, it's like, it feels like a cocktail party. You're walking around, you're meeting other candidates, you're meeting uniformed flight attendants, you're connecting with them, making friends, showing them how hospitable you are, what amazing legendary hospitality you're bringing to the table. Lots of airlines do this as well, this face-to-face, and then it usually includes some sort of sit down, one-on-one, more what we would think about a traditional interview. Okay. Delta also has sort of another, not a sort of, they have the most robust the most robust interview process, and they've always had the most robust, meaning multiple steps process. They also have something in there called a virtual job tryout. Virtual job tryout is where they give you some scenarios. There's some thing that you listen to, you answer some questions, you read, you listen, some audio, that's the word. You listen, you read some questions, you answer some questions about a job, like what you would do, how would you handle this situation? So make sure you're really listening. If you get this, you're not on video, so you don't have to be made up when you do this, but you do want to be ready to pay attention and listen and really kind of absorb what's going on in the virtual job tryout. So those are the steps. We've got assessments, virtual job tryouts. We've got several different types of interviews. You will be asked a total of 4 different types of interview questions. So some airlines lean more heavily on one type of interview question than another, but there's basically 4 types that you'll encounter. One is the STAR format question. This is a behavioral type question. If you have been Googling or looking around or doing any kind of research about how to become a flight attendant, I'm sure, or how to interview, I'm sure you've seen a lot about the STAR format. STAR is just an acronym to help you tell a story about something that you've done in the past, a challenge you've overcome, a customer you've helped. It sounds kind of like technical, but it's really not once you get the hang of it. Tell me what you think questions. This is like, why do you want to be a flight attendant? Why do you want to work for my airline? What do you think is going to be the most challenging thing about becoming a flight attendant? Then we also have like personality or icebreaker questions. Who is your biggest hero? Who is your hero? If you could have dinner with anyone, who would you have dinner with? What's one item you take with you every time you travel? Those are more like icebreaker personality type questions. And then the last kind is called an onboard situational question. And these are the questions where they say, let's say you're a flight attendant and you have a passenger who won't put away his phone, won't put up his seat back, won't put away his laptop. How would you handle that? He's had too much to drink. How would you handle that? So onboard situational questions. It's kind of the opposite of STAR. STAR format is saying, tell me about a time when you did this, and then onboard situational is what would you do if this happened. So those are the 4 types. In the Flight Attendant Career Connection interview workbook, there's over 75 different questions divided into those 4 sections. It's newly updated for 2023, and it also comes with 4 training videos that will break down every single one of those questions and give you tons of examples and guidance on how you can come up with your most authentic and best answer for any interview question that your interviewer presents to you. Because I'm a really firm believer in the fact that interviewing is a skill. So just like any skill, you can get better at it. Some people are born naturally really good at basketball, but no matter how good you start at basketball, if you practice and you learn about basketball, you will get better at basketball. And the same is true for interviewing. You will get better at interviewing. So the interview workbook is a fantastic place to start. Check out the link below. And then okay, so that is the interview process. At the end of that, you'll be offered an invitation to training. We call this a CJO, a conditional job offer. United calls it a CTO, a conditional training offer. So you'll see these acronyms kind of thrown around, but it's CJO means you've been invited to come to training. So between CJO offer and training beginning, you will have a drug test, no marijuana, no illegal drugs. Marijuana, even if you have a prescription, no marijuana at all in your system. It's a federal drug test, and the federal government hasn't changed any of their regulations about marijuana use, okay? In any form, any way, any prescription, anything, all right? But if you are prescribed some sort of other medication, like an ADHD med or something that would maybe show up, those are okay. You would just, if it shows up on your drug test, like if your Adderall shows up on your drug test, they would just request your prescription. Okay, so those are kind of 2 things about the drug test that I get asked pretty regularly. So I wanted to mention those. After the drug test, not after, but in addition to the drug test, they'll also be running a background check on you. So it's a 10-year background check. They want to make sure that you are who you say you are, that you've done what you said you've done, and they're not calling your employers and saying, hey, would you rehire her? It's not like a reference check. It literally is more like a criminal background check, making sure that you don't have anything in your background that you didn't disclose, that you are not a criminal, that you're not some kind of undercover spy type person. I mean, honestly, I know it sounds kind of funny, but that's what they're looking for. That's why they want 10 years of history with no gaps. If there's a gap, they want to know where you were, what you were doing, and who you were doing it with during that gap, so that they can make sure that you are who you say that you are. After your background check, drug test is all kind of taken care of, you will go to training. Training is anywhere from 2 weeks to 7.5 weeks, depending on your airline. Some airlines pay you during training. Some airlines do not pay you during training. You will not pay for training. Training is always provided to you free of charge. So the training is free. Most airlines, almost all of them, except I believe Hawaiian Airlines is the only one that I know of that does not provide transportation, housing, and some sort of food or food stipend while you're in training. And so that's kind of like the bare, right? So the bare minimum would be, at least they'll fly you out. They will put you in a hotel. They will get you to and from the training center, and they will either give you some stipend for food, like giving you some per diem, or they will provide meals and food for you. Okay, so that's kind of the minimum. Then on top of that, some airlines will also pay you some money, while you're in training. Then some airlines will give you a stipend, like kind of like a bonus at graduation. So $1,500, a little chunk of money when you successfully complete training. Okay, so that's kind of how training works. Training is intense. It is, you're learning a ton. You will learn everything from how to respond to medical emergencies, how to fight fires, how to evacuate a plane in the water and on the land, planned, unplanned. There's so many different things that you're learning as far as being a safety professional, in addition to the things that we imagine, like how to do service. And if you're flying for an airline that has a fancy first class service, You're learning that too. That's where I learned how to open a bottle of wine. That's where I learned how to open a bottle of champagne is in flight attendant training, stewardess school. So you'll learn all those kinds of things in training. A bunch of it is safety. Some of it is customer service and service driven. So once you graduate from training, let's all think about it for a minute. Once you graduate from training, you'll get your shiny new wings and you'll be on your way. You will be, there's crew base. So your airline will base you where they need you. So they'll assign you to one of their crew bases based on need. Usually airlines have anywhere from maybe about 5 to upwards of 20 flight attendant crew bases kind of all around the country. You don't have to move to your crew base, but it is best to move to your crew base if possible, because commuting can be difficult at the beginning because you'll be on what's called reserve, which is basically on call for your days. You're not on call the whole month or anything like that, but you're on reserve or on call anywhere from 12 days a month, depending on your airline, to about 20 or 21 days a month. So it kind of depends on your airline. So being able to be in base is really nice because you have to be there the day before you start being on call. You don't get to sit reserve at home if you're living across the country. So it's not mandatory. They don't require you to move, but it is best to move. At the least, you're going to probably set up shop, set up a little home base in your crew base city for a little bit, whether that's splitting a room with someone, renting an apartment with some of the friends that you made in training, renting a room from someone else who probably works at your company and stuck something on the bulletin board, or staying in what's called a crash pad, which is it's a business, it's a house or a hotel room or an apartment that's been outfitted with bunk beds, and it just houses crew. You basically would rent your bed a month at a time. So there's lots of different options, but relocating is best, especially at the beginning. You'll get more flexibility and more control over your schedule. It's so windy here. It keeps blowing in my room and taking my breath away. But you will get more control over your schedule. So let's talk about what you need to be a flight attendant. So I already told you don't need to go to school, any kind of school, to be a flight attendant, but you need to meet the minimum age requirement, okay? So that would be 18, 19, 20, or 21, depending on the airlines. There's airlines that hire at all 4 of those ages. Once you hit 21, you can be hired anywhere. Here in the United States, there is no max. There is no top out to become a flight attendant. You cannot be too old to become a flight attendant or to continue working as a flight attendant in the United States. It's not like that everywhere around the world, and it wasn't always like that here either. But now that's the truth. I've worked with clients in their 60s and even in their early 70s who, with no flight attendant experience, that became flight attendants, and a couple that did have flight attendant experience way back in the day, stewardess days, and are back at their career now that they're done doing all the other things they've been doing for the last couple decades of their life. There's actually a flight attendant at Alaska who got hired in his 70s, and he's been flying for 20 years. So he's in his early 90s now, and he is still rocking it as a flight attendant, which is amazing. So there is no maximum age. Don't worry about that. There is no weight requirements anymore either. Now, that being said, you do have to be able to fit in the jump seat without an extension. You have to be able to fit down the aisle, and you have to be able to fit out the overwing exit. You have to be able to move throughout the cabin easily. So they're not going to weigh you. No one's going to weigh you. That actually went away a lot later than the age thing did. It wasn't that long ago they were weighing, but they stopped weighing in the late 90s. So thankfully, you will not be weighed. Now, you will be tested to fit in the jump seat. They'll do a jump seat test. Let's talk numbers because I like numbers. As far as size goes, most uniforms go up to at least a size 18. I know there are a couple airlines that have bigger sizes, but I know some airlines stop at size 18 because that is sort of the size that they think of as fitting comfortably down the aisle. So if you're a size 18 or smaller, you should be good to go. If you are a size bigger than an 18, you might want to think about how you're carrying your weight, and it might be a little bit of a challenge for you, okay? So I'm not discouraging you. I just want to be real with you, because to say like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it could matter, but thankfully no one's getting weighed, and you don't have to be thin or super thin or be presenting in that way in a certain image to get hired. There's opportunities for all of us as long as you can fit. When I got hired as a flight attendant for the first time, I was wearing a size 12 suit. And when I got hired the second time, I was wearing a size 14 suit. So it's not just, again, this is just like the age, it's not just lip service. You really, as long as you can fit in the jump seat, you're going to be good. You're going to be fine. They're going to hire you. So hopefully that relieves some of your fears. Do you need a passport to be a flight attendant? Yes, absolutely. Now, when you need the passport is where all of the different nuance comes in. So some airlines require you to have a valid passport at the time of application. JetBlue is one of these. Do not apply to JetBlue if you do not have a valid passport, because if you don't have a valid passport at the time of application, it will kick your application out, and then you will have to wait to reapply. So if you get your resume, your passport the next day, you got to wait. So read the job description. In the job description, it will tell you if you have to be able to obtain a passport, if you have to have in your possession a passport, or if you have to get your passport before the interview, or if you have to get your passport before you start training, or when they want you to have the passport. Some will let you come to the interview with the receipt that you've requested your passport. So there's lots of different nuance in here. Kind of like the easiest thing to do is to go ahead and work on getting your passport, but you don't have to wait to have your passport to apply to any airline. So you can find the airlines that you don't have to have a passport and go ahead and start on those applications while you're waiting for your passport to come in. Okay. So those are pretty much the basic questions that I get asked. I hope that this video helps you get started on your journey. I would love to help you navigate through the journey. I have lots of different resources. Some are free, some are paid, but I would love to be able to help you any way that I can. I'm just honored to be part of your journey, and I can't wait to see where your wings take you in 2023.